Hello, today we're going to be talking about the Frankfort Arsenal M Press. The problem I'm having is the shell plate nuts or bolts, or however you want to call them, are stripping. As you can see in the picture, the splines that are pressed into the shell plate from turning the shell plate from one caliber to another. Right now I'm loading 5 different calibers, and I've loaded over 1,000 rounds so far in this machine. I've had it for 1 year. I've called Frankfurt and talked to them, and they're telling me that there's no replacement parts for these machines as of yet. And further talking to them, I figured out they're having a problem with China, where the machine is made. The machine is good quality and it's very well built, except they're using inferior metals on the inside. So, after talking to another guy, I found out that they're thinking about moving their operation to Thailand or Mexico to get the company to make extra parts, because they know that there's a problem with these machines. I also had a problem with my swager. The spring broke and they have not got him in yet, and that's been over 4 months. So that all tells me that they're having a problem with the manufacturer not being able to get parts. But I figured out a way of fixing it, which doesn't last long, but it's good enough for reloading sessions. And I took the screws out of the shell plate already, and I cleaned out the splines that were left, and I used JB Weld, just a little bit of it, and get it in there. And the bottom of the bolt to the top of the shell plate is a 1/4 inch, or maybe even a little more, depends on your plate. My plate has a bend in it at the top here, so it doesn't sit flat on the table. So I've been looking for a machinist that can make me new bolts with the splines in a very good material, stainless steel or hardened case steel, and I'm hoping that they have a press that they can flatten the top plate out. But what I did was to take the bolts out, and then you raise the handle, and then you bring it down, and then bring it down a couple times, and when it comes loose, you're able to pull the shell plate off. Okay? And then you have to move one back, one forward, drop it out. Drop the other one out. And you could see that the front tang is up a little bit. So that's still not as flat as I like it to be. But this is the one in question. Now as you can see at the bottom there, there's grease there, but I did very little JB Weld in there, and then I cleaned it up so it wouldn't interfere with the sliding of the plate. So, as I said, I'm going to have new pins made, but I got to find a machinist in my area that'll do it. As for the maintenance of it, every 300 rounds, I would take this disc out, take the shell plate cover off, and this little disc here, it's a very thin piece of metal, and then I would clean out the areas for these spring-loaded things that move the pins back and forth. There's set screws underneath here that hold these bolts in that come out, and then the whole pin assembly comes out, but be careful you don't lose the spring in that. But you shouldn't have to take it apart, but every 200-300 rounds you should clean in this area, get all the material that fell underneath there out. I always put a light coat of oil on these before I start, and then here in the joints I drop a drop of oil, and if you move it back and forth, drop a drop of oil. Up here, all the joints, I put in there some oil. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then when I'm done with my loading session, I clean it all up and I put it in a cover on top of it to keep the dust and dirt off it. You want to oil these rods up and down a little bit so they don't rust. The shell plate, clean underneath the shell plates and that when you do it. You shouldn't have to do it but every 200-300 rounds. As for the die blocks, I replaced the set screws because they come with brass. I put stainless steel in there because the brass would always loosen up on the die. So I use stainless steel. You are going to dent the die a little bit, but you can clean up the threads with a fine file. Okay, a very fine file. Just clean the edge up to get the mark off that the set screw, so you can use the dies in other machines. But I only have the one machine for loading rifle, so I don't take them apart or anything like that. But that's the fix that I've come up with, JB Weld. It lasts about 200 rounds before it starts to loosen up again. And when they become loose, your shell doesn't lock up as nice as it should when it's brand new. So, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.